Hi YouTubers. So today I wanted to speak to you about the place that genetic testing has in IVF. And it's come under a lot of scrutiny, especially from places like England, where they've said that perhaps genetic testing is an unnecessary add-on to an already expensive process. Now, I would counter that by saying that genetic testing offers us a much better selection of what embryo to put back in your uterus. And to test an embryo now, compared to simply transferring it, for each transfer, you could, for the same money, you could pay for 5 embryos to be tested. Now you might say, well, I don't feel that I'm particularly old. I don't feel that I have a particular genetic susceptibility to abnormality. But if I draw your attention to this slide, what I want to show you is even in women below the age of 35, on average, if we biopsy their embryos and test them genetically, about 60% of their embryos will test abnormal. And obviously as women age, this just gets worse. So that by the time you're 44, the chances of us testing a genetically normal embryo is about 1 out of every 20 biopsied embryos. So just from a financial point of view, if we were putting back untested embryos in women under the age of 35, there would be 2 normal embryos out of every 5. So if we were choosing these embryos just based on what they look like, which is their grade, which has got nothing to do with their genetics, we would be correct 2 out of 5 times. And 3 out of 5 times we would be putting back an embryo which is genetically abnormal. And just to remind you what the outcomes are when we put genetically abnormal embryos into the uterus, the biggest outcome is that you don't fall pregnant. The second biggest outcome is that when you do fall pregnant, you have a chance of miscarriage. And the third outcome is that you could end up at 12 weeks being told that there's something wrong with the baby when they do the NT screen, and that perhaps you may need to terminate the pregnancy. So none of those are particularly acceptable as outcomes. So if we're going to use embryo transfer as a means of testing whether the embryo is a good quality or not, you're going to be paying 5 times what you would pay for an embryo transfer compared to testing the embryos up front. So there's a financial model for genetic testing. In other words, there's a very good argument to say, if you wanted to put your embryos back, avoiding the embryos which can't give you a pregnancy, which can give you a miscarriage, and that could give you a syndrome, this offers screening beforehand so that we can better select embryos for your transfer.